Good morning. Thank you, everyone, to be here. This talk is about Konflux. I think most of you know what is it, but I can give you a short introduction about what is the productization and what is our operator, what we did good, what we did wrong, and that's all. Okay. The first step of this talk is why productization is so hard, especially in the cloud-native environments. Okay. What is the productization? We had an upstream operator that is called Observability Operator, and we were so happy because we are the best devs. We had a very good operator working right, but at that point, someone came and said, we need the same, but for the client, for the people to install in an operator, install in the cluster, and ready to work. And then the productization means you have some software, but it has to be reproducible, you have to be security compliance, you have to get the generation of SBOM, the image, the documentation, and everything. The problem is we have a lot of legacy tools to do productization, but in cloud environments it's a little more complex. Okay, this is our operator. We were here in, I think, October, and this should be in December, was a little later, but this is what we had, and this is what we want to have. Now it's ready, but between these two images, there were like a lot of work. This is our operator, it's called COO. Why we have a new operator if we have a default one that is called CMO is because CMO is our default operator for observability in OpenShift, and we want another one to let the people have a better experience in observability. Not only the default things that you have with the CMO, something different. The good thing is the CMO is by default in the clusters, and this one, the COO, is optional. The good thing is that you can you have these different components that are similar, some of them of the CMO, but others are different. Okay, this is our operator, and we want to achieve with Konflux these things. Okay, why Konflux if we had different tools in the past? Because Konflux is Kubernetes-native, and it also a strategy of Red Hat. All the teams have to move to Konflux this year. That is good, and also has bad things. Simplifies the delivery, even if the ramp-up is not easy, at the end should be a good thing. Konflux work on Tekton pipelines. That means that you can do whatever you want with Konflux. That is a pro, but it's also a bad thing because you can broke a lot of things. What do Konflux do good? Automates the builds, the tests, the response generations, the syncing of the image, and it's focused in security. That is good for the clusters. And okay, why Konflux and not the other tools that we have in the past? Because, for example, my colleague was working in OpenStack with DLRN, and also we were working with CPaaS before Konflux, and we front different issues. Some of them are here. Okay, when we changed to Konflux, we front many different issues. One of the first was the infrastructure that at the very beginning, the ramp-up was not so easy because we were a team of developers and we had to change everything to Konflux. Then there were many different things to configure. The pipelines were so fragmented and the visibility across the stage was not so good. We front a lot of issues with the security because this component has like a lot of different components, and Konflux runs like a lot CV scannings, and also we suffer about false negatives. It was not so easy to fix everything and get working everything. And also the reproducibility and the stability was not so easy. As I said before, Konflux versus legacy tools, why we work with Konflux and not with DLRN, for example. DLRN is using OpenStack and it's good for RPM versioning. It works with Zuul as CI. It's really good for RPM image, but it's not so good for cloud-native environments. Also, had a good integration with Koji and Brew, but it's not enough for our operators. CPaaS. We were working with CPaaS before Konflux. It works, but had many cons. One of the biggest maybe is that CPaaS is based on Jenkins, and scaling was so hard, then it was not easy to work with CPaaS. Also, the maintenance was not easy, and one of the previous reasons is not easy to integrate with the cloud natives. Also, CPaaS and DLRN have certain limitations, mainly the lack of support of cloud-native environments, poor visibility of the different pipelines, and the CI. Okay, this is a summary about what we had in CPaaS and the new things in Konflux. The best thing that we have in Konflux and some of the bad things that we had in CPaaS. Okay, what we did to start with Konflux? We had just the operator in upstream, then we had to prepare all the environment for Konflux, create two repos, one in GitHub, another one in GitLab, define all the environments for Konflux, the test, all the YAML files, the pipelines, the CVEs, and all the things. Okay, this is the basic steps to go with Konflux. In the side of GitLab, we have different files of configuration. The most important ones are the enterprise contract, release plan, and the release plan admission. About the enterprise contract is the file where we configure all the policies and where we do every check. To have a successful release with Konflux, you have to pass all the checks that Konflux have. You have to configure one policy and then pass all the checks. Some of them are about security, others about Konflux issues with the configuration. And when you pass this theme, you are right, and the security, the compliance, and everything is working. I add here this snapshot because it was what I saw during 2 months, more or less, and then just to share with you. This is the enterprise contact. This is the configuration of the YAML files. This is an important part because when we release the 1.0, we wanted to do a release, but some of the requirements was not ready because it takes time. Then, for example, the hermetic builds of the FIPS compliant, we had to postpone to the 1.1 or 1.2. And in the enterprise contact, you can add some exclusions, like you see at the bottom. Okay, this is the release plan. It's another configuration file of your application, and the release plan admission that defines the specific pipeline. And you have to add here all the components that you have in your application. You can see all the steps that you have to add. This is the UI of Konflux. We had some issues here because at the very beginning it was a little slow. In this field, you have to add all the components, the nudges, and everything that you want to have in your application. These are all the components that we have in the cluster observability operator. Then the challenge was that every release you have to pass all the checks for every component. We have many issues with the false negatives of the CVEs, with some configurations. The good thing is that every component is managed for a different team, but it was a big challenge to manage all the different components, all the different teams, and fix all the different issues that we had. That was the configuration of Konflux in the GitLab. And we have another repo in GitHub. It's Konflux.CO. In fact, now we have two because we split the main themes and the catalogs to another repo. As I said before, Konflux is based on Tekton. Then here you have to configure all the Tekton pipelines, all the component submodules, the nudges that are triggers that upload the different components and the different things in Konflux, the catalogs that now are in another repo, and all the local files for every component. Important Konflux concepts here in this repo is the snapshots, release bundle, the FBCs, that is the file-based catalogs, and the pipelines. The snapshot, is, as the name says, is the immutable set of components, and when you arrive at one state, Konflux generates a snapshot, and this is like the image with all the components and the configuration at a point. With this snapshot, you can do a release bundle and the catalog and everything. The release bundle is the bundle of all the components, make it with the release plans that we said before. This is one example of the release YAML. Then this is, for example, for a stage. When you do a bundle, the image are uploaded to the advisory, and you can. The next step is to create the FBC with that image. Okay, this is the FBC. Is like the package of the components of the bundle for every OpenShift version. This is, for example, for 4.19, and you can see it's pointing to a release plan and to a snapshot. Okay, this one. This is the pipelines. When you have all the components ready and you make a release, these all pipelines are triggered. I said before that at the very beginning, now it's improved a lot, but at the very beginning the UI was so slow. Then the good thing of Konflux is that you can do everything in the shell. Then sometimes I think it always is better to do in the shell because it's faster and you can check everything. If you have worked with Konflux before, you understand some of the pipelines. The bad thing is to get the correct release, everyone has to pass. Some of them was not easy to pass because the infra issues or different things that we see after. Okay, I think in February we released our 1.0 COO release. We did like a couple of delays, but the good news is at the end we did it, and we learned a lot of things. Now we are in the 1.2, I think so, like 2 release after, and we are facing issues, but we have more knowledge than before. Then now we know how to handle of the issues. This is what we did to achieve the GA. The main concern that we had at the very beginning is, as I said, one of the things of Konflux was that it's a strategical move of Red Hat. Then the idea was to move every team to Konflux at a time. The idea was good, but Red Hat is a big company. We have many teams in OpenShift, many components. Then we were suffering like a couple of months, like a lot of capacity issues, because as I showed you before, there are a lot of pipelines, a lot of image to be created, a lot of tests to pass, a lot of CVs to check. And then everyone, I was working with a couple of colleagues, and then everyone upload their own PRs, the tests, everything, and we suffer like a lot of capacity issues. The bad thing is we had like a lot of pipelines. If one fails, the release fails. Then you have to start from the beginning, and I think maybe a release is a couple of hours, I think so. You have to start over again, and it makes, okay. This is, in December we thought that we were there, but we, from like many issues at the beginning of the year, this is, the text is small, is do it on purpose because, I mean, there were a lot of things. And I don't want to stop in everyone, but just to share a little bit the pain if you were working with Konflux. Maybe you can understand some of the red and the orange, you know. Okay. This is also some of the issues that we had. It's also, the text is small because I don't want to talk about everyone, but maybe I can like talk about some of our problems there. At the very beginning, well, there are different issues here. For example, at the very beginning, there were a lot of capacity issues because there were some big team that was working with a lot of components in the Konflux, and I think they only have one cluster. And then every time that we did a push, everything fails, and it took like a lot of time to understand what was happening and the way to fix it. We were like talking a lot with the Konflux people and just to figure out what to do and how to fix the things. Another issues were with the nudges, for example. Sometimes when you change your code, you were expecting that the nudges update the components of Konflux or your components or whatever, and sometimes were not working. Then you upload the code and you think that the new code was working, but was working the old code, for example. Then you have like a different image in Konflux and different image in your mind, and was also a problem. I talk about the capacity issues. Also, at the very beginning, everything was so manual. Then were so error prone. We had a lot of issues with YAML files, with typos, or whatever, because there are a bunch of files. We were 3 people working on that, and you know now. I think it's much better. There are more hooks. The nudges are working right. The UI is working better because the other day I was like playing a little bit around. Then most of the issues are solved. Okay, this is a summary about what worked, what didn't, and what we do again. What worked, I mean, now that we have the release, we are more or less happy, and we know how Konflux works. All the pipelines are working, then most of the structure is working, and it will work. The pain was at the very beginning to do all the files of the YAMLs and everything. What didn't? Of course, the learning curve, because we came from another productization software. Konflux is a little different, has many files to configure, and was not easy to understand all the flow, all the things. I mean, the bundle, the catalogs, the nudges, the FBCs, the enterprise contact was a little tricky. Also, to put our legacy pipelines in Konflux and migrating everything at that time. But we think that the summary is a good software, and now everything is easier. I could say that we are happy with it. Okay, this is the documentation. The slides are on the website of the conference. And this is the recap and the contact info. If you have been working with Konflux or you have any questions or you want to share some pain or whatever, you are okay? Yeah, I think you have to talk here. Sorry.
Okay, so a couple of questions. You said one of the challenges with the earlier systems was maintainability. That looked like a lot of YAML files in multiple repositories. So how's the maintainability of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the perfect software, but as I said, now every YAML, every config file is working, then the pipelines, everything is working right. And when we have to do a new release, I mean, like everything is working. We only have to change the components to add some information about the CVEs if we break something or whatever. Then, I mean, I was working with CPaaS, and I think the maintainability here is better. Okay. But about DLRN, I don't know, because my colleague was working in OpenStack, then I don't know. But I mean, I think every software of productization has many cons, and this is not the perfect one, because I mean, the only perfect software maybe is, I don't want to say.
Okay. And the other question, it sounded from an earlier slide like you started out just using GitHub Actions. So you kind of could do most of this in GitHub Actions. It would probably involve more custom building of things. But what does Konflux give you that you don't get from sort of building a release flow in GitHub Actions or GitLab Actions or something like that?
Could you repeat the question, please?
What do you get out of using Konflux compared to, say, just building a release flow in GitHub Actions or GitLab Actions or something like that?
I think, I mean, we are moving to Konflux because one of the main things is cloud native. Then I think it's better for our operators. Also, it's focused on security. Then we can be sure that our software is complains with FIPS, with the CVs and everything. Then everything is centralized here. And I would say that it's easier to check everything and to have like a security cloud native productization software, because there are not another one, I think so. Then I will say that this is the best. Anything else? Okay. Then thank you very much for attending, and that's all.